Welcome to the Good News Bay podcast, where we are making Bay County brighter, one conversation at a time. Today we have a distinct treat. I've got two of our former guests that are back, but this time they're back together. They both have and are serving incredible roles in our community, but have been teaming up on a number of different projects and have a special announcement, or actually a press release. It's already been made, but we want to continue to herald the good news forward. And so we have Parker McClellan with us, who is the Executive Director of Northwest Florida Beaches International Airport. He's the man in charge, sometimes called the Sandman. Is I allowed to say that again?
Yep. When I'm out doing a little marketing, I take my sandbox and let the airlines play with it as we try to convince them.
The beaches sell themselves, don't they?
Yes, sir, they do.
We also have with us Becca Hardin, who's the president of the Bay County Economic Development Alliance.
Yes, sir.
And you both have a significant role in bringing jobs to Bay County. I think that's in essence, that's a big part of what we're talking about today. There is a project that has been known as Project Maple that has been a win and is a success. And we want to push that momentum as far as we can because it is good news for all of Bay County. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. I think, Beck, I want to start with you because there's kind of an overarching concept here of recruiting business, and I want to use Project Maple kind of as a example of what happens when we have all these hooks that are baited, right? I mean, we are in Florida. We do a lot of deep sea fishing. So we got lots of lines in the water with bait on them, but every once in a while, you don't have to catch them all, but you have to catch some.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about what Project Maple is. I know we're talking about Premier Aviation. I mean, They are the reason, their willingness to come here is the reason that we can talk. But talk to us about it.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you and commend you for having both of us on the same show. Before it's over, we might be in a contest to see who can out-talk each other.
Y'all are going to challenge my ability to moderate.
Which is glad. I'm glad he's sitting way over there, so I don't have to whack him with my elbow when we're talking too much.
I get kicked under the table all the time.
And as you can tell, we're like brother and sister, and we work so closely together. And so much fun to have a project like Premier Aviation that we can talk proudly about, that our team has worked to push over the finish line. Parker's been here a little bit longer than I have, but I know for the last 9 years, we've been working very hard to recruit a maintenance, repair, and overhaul company to the airport. It's right in line with the vision that we have for a lot of things, and we'll talk about that as we continue our discussion. But Premier Aviation is a Canadian company. They're headquartered in Quebec City. We actually met them at a maintenance, repair, and overhaul show in Dallas, Texas. It was kind of a cold call meeting that we had set before the show. And they're looking to build a 100,000 square foot facility, a hangar, adjacent to the 10,000 foot runway that Parker runs. And they'll eventually create 250 new jobs, and it's capital investment of about $32.5 million. So from a job perspective and a capital intensive perspective, it's going to have a very positive impact on the economy of our community.
Okay, so one of the things I try to do as a pastor is I take complicated things that everybody may not understand, and I put it. And you're doing great. You sound like business. I mean, like you know the stuff. Some of my listeners and viewers are not in that business world every day, and so a couple of things that I just kind of want to break down. Number one is you guys. You talked about the trade shows, so I know that you travel a lot. A lot of the people in the industry itself do. Many of the folks that are trying to help Bay County attract new jobs are actually going to some of these places. Now, you mentioned an actual show in Dallas where there were a group. We've been trying to get a maintenance, repair, and overhaul business. So there was a group of these kind of businesses, a show or a conference for this, right?
Right.
So you go and you talk about Bay County at a place like this.
Right. We always book our meetings before we go. We do it ourselves, or we hire a site selection consultant to help us book these meetings. This Premier Aviation was actually booked by an agency that I hired to help us book appointments beforehand. When you say you go to trade shows and you talk to companies, people think, oh, you're walking around up and down the aisles of a trade show. That's further from the truth. We have very succinct planned meetings and schedules. I mean, every 30 minutes. And so typically when we do MRO shows, we have a team of 4 people. So it'll be myself, Parker's board chair often goes, and then my colleague Ben Moorman, who's part of our Bay EDA team. So it's a very thoughtful, planned out, strategic recruitment mission that we plan before we go.
And these are annual meetings, so you go and you build relationships.
Okay.
As we know, everything in life is about a relationship. So
true.
this works toward that. For example, last one was in Atlanta. In 2 days, we had 21 or 22 meetings.
Wow.
And you literally just go from one to another. So you have that on-off button. It's on for 12 to 14 hours a day when we're at
That's a
those.
lot.
And they're asking you questions like, how are things in Bay County, Panama City? How are things at the airport? And, you know, thankfully, we're able to tell them a lot of really good news right
Yeah.
now.
Their question is, why should we go there? So we're going to have to go with your salesman hat on. And I say just salesman very generically, but you go with your sales hat on and say, hey, here's what we have. Whether it's the port, the airport, venture crossings, the IDC, any of those areas that Becca kind of helps focus all. We like to tell her she's the chief cat herder. Because everybody has their own interest.
Yeah.
Well, you're a little competitive too, right?
You know, I tell people that I'm probably the most competitive person you'll ever meet, and this is the worst career for me to have, because you may work 100 projects and maybe get traction on one, and the likelihood of you losing that's very high too. So you lose a lot more than you win. That's why when you have a company like Premier Aviation, that's a big deal. Nobody really understands the work behind the scenes that goes on to bring a new company to town, or even help an existing company expand, because you lose so many more than you win.
Well, and I want to take a minute to point people. It sounds almost sounds self-serving in a way, but if they want to know more about what you do, we did tell your story on a whole podcast, and they're going to find the link in the show notes, but they can learn, like, this is an example of those pieces working. I think Central Maloney was another example that we talked about. And these keep coming down the pipeline. The same with the airport. If they want to be able to look back, say, I don't know, was it about a year ago that we did that podcast?
Like 18 months, yeah.
And you can literally see what the expectations were of what we thought what the future was going to bring. You can see the progress that we've made. But it's exciting, and I do want to make sure we talk enough about Premier Aviation, because $32.5 million, is that what you said?
Yes.
That's an investment in our area. It also brings jobs. When we talk about jobs, keep in mind one of the things that locals in Bay County, a lot of them desire to have higher paying jobs in our community. That just doesn't automatically happen. It's not like we're going to wake up one day and all of a sudden there's going to be a lot of higher paying jobs that can allow you to afford homes here. For that to happen, people have to invest in our community and bring those jobs. It's fascinating to me to see how the pieces all work. And so Premier Aviation, as we look at, well, who are these people that are coming from Canada, right? Well, one of the quotes that I wanted to give you guys, and I'd like to share with our community, is Sylvain Perron, who is the president of the company, said this: family is our most important core value, and we are overjoyed to be expanding in Bay County and creating new opportunities for people to prosper in their hometown. Yeah. Man, for Bay County and this region, I love being able to hear we want people in Bay County to prosper in their hometown.
Yeah.
Now, you've said there's a few folks that will be probably coming down this way from Canada, but most of it's going to be us training a workforce locally, right?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
So if we're going to be training a workforce locally, how many jobs did you say this project will bring?
250.
250 jobs for people in Bay County. We talk a lot about the need for people in trades and in general, but we talk a lot about education in Bay County. I know I've done other podcasts with educators and school board members at Winston-Chester, Mark McQueen, and others. And the discussion there is how do we provide certificates in these trades? And then we're looking forward actually to having a podcast soon talking about this very thing specifically with our friends at A.A.E. But Parker, you were actually saying that you have some connections with, I think, with A.A.E. And so in the sense that, we're trying to make these plans long term to bring the companies, but they want to know, can they get a workforce?
Yeah.
But all of you guys talk.
So at Haney, each of the trades has an advisory board where they bring in industry partners, and you're part of the so I'm the part of the aviation advisory board, and as part of that, we kind of talk about what does the future look like, and if you look at the future is, and we've talked about a little bit about Project Goodwrench. It's one of our projects that's always out there. Project Goodwrench is the ability to take and move the aviation program out to the airport.
Right.
Because what's more valuable than being in that environment every day? I will tell you, going to work every day, the smell of jet fuel in the morning, all that kind of stuff. That's what I don't get my hands greasy, greasy. Occasionally I do, but I don't turn wrenches. But if I were in that business and I could do that every day, I'd want to be part of that. And that's what we think brings value of bringing that out to the airport. And Haney, Angela agrees with that.
Angela Reese.
And she is supportive of that.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to figure out how to put all the little pieces of the puzzles together because it all gets down to money, and we're trying to figure out how to make that work. But we have the support of Haney. We have several of the school board members have told us they are supportive of it.
Right.
Our board is supportive of doing that. So it's going to be one of those that happens. One day we're just going to be on this podcast and say we've done it.
Well, I don't know how all the pieces fit. I know y'all are. I mean, literally, y'all get behind the scenes and y'all put the puzzle together. And sometimes you have to go find pieces that you may not already have in the box. But we discussed this briefly. I look forward to talking to Angela Reese here soon. But when you look over there, I know that their enrollment has increased dramatically. There's buildings going up over there. Many of their seats are filled, and I mean, if you've been around here long, you drive by and you see airplane shells over there. They're trying to work on some of that stuff. But you've got, like, we're talking about what opportunity in the future looks like. You've got 3,000 acres up there that has yet to be developed at the new airport. I call it the new airport. It's been there a few minutes. But the fact is, there's potential. And other companies, this is like the beginning with Premier Aviation, other companies now seeing a success in Premier Aviation can find that, we can go to Bay County and do that very same thing, right?
Well, as we announced Premier, that creates other companies that, as a matter of fact, when we were in Atlanta, I'll digress just a little bit.
Sure.
One of the things that they said was, for the first time that we've been, and Becca, you remember, you were the one that told me this, that companies say, oh, I've been looking at Bay County. And now all of a sudden we have Premier. So those looks are now second, third looks. Mm-hmm. And then you get phone calls, and then you get visits. And, that's what it's all about. Because when you get to Bay County, we sell ourselves. Yeah. Bay County sells itself, because what a better place to raise your family. And quite honestly, that's what makes a difference. And that was one of the attractions for Premier. When Sylvain and his VP JC came down. Mm-hmm. When they came down, they were like, wait a minute, I get a family vibe. And that's one of the big things that sold them on our community.
Yeah. That's awesome. One of the struggles with recruiting businesses to the area is it costs money to make that movement, and incentives help at times. I know one of the things is we look, you can look at you can look at circumstances, and you can find all the struggles in a circumstance, or you can look at that same set of circumstances that you may not be able to change, but you look for the opportunities there. On this show, and I actually thought about this part a little bit lately, I don't want to be that guy. I'm going to use this term toxic. You don't know where I'm going with this.
You're making me nervous.
No, you're good. Well, there's such a thing as toxic positivity. And it's the idea that no matter what happens, you just say, hey, oh, that's good. That's easy. No, I want to look at life and say, okay, this is the reality where things are. As a community, we had an oil spill that happened like in the Gulf, and it hurt tourism here for a little bit. But we continued to press through that. And now there's actually some funds that are set aside that have been part of the help whenever, I think there's 8 counties that were affected by that. And it helps you guys as a tool when communities think, I'm talking about the Triumph Fund.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with it now?
Yeah.
And so, but we can look at hurricanes, and we can say, that put us on our back. But now that's not what they talk about when they talk about Bay County, because the infrastructure is there. We were talking about the roundabout. For those that hadn't been up by the airport lately, it's done, right? And so we now have infrastructure in. I hope I'm going in a good place with this, but we got infrastructure in place to actually invite these would-be companies to come, and all the pieces that they need are there, right?
Well, as you look at the roundabout, the realignment of 388, the growth and the development of the northwest part of Bay County, we've got a hospital coming,
We
a new
do.
hospital coming.
We do.
That's all about growth.
Mhm.
You know, those are great things that more of our community is. The beach is an important part, but it's not everything. And part of what Becca's trying to do and what we try to do is diversify that so that if there is an adjustment in the economy, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I'm not an economist, but that we aren't impacted
Right.
as dramatically. Whether there's a hurricane, even if that's hurricanes are a temporary thing. You get
Right.
over those, you move on. It's harder for some people. I will preface with that, and I understand that. Overall, it's all about diversifying the economy, and this project, the Premier Aviation Project Maple, which got to give Becca the whole maple leaf thing was the
Very creative, huh? Very creative.
So hey, so on that note, because you're referring to the names, they've heard Project Goodwrench, they've heard Project Maple. You give projects like this kind of a nickname as you work on them, right?
Some of the projects come already named, like Project Stamper is a big mega project that we had just worked and unfortunately didn't win, but we really had a good showing with it. That was already named. That was Project Stamper. They come to us, but we probably come up with most of the names, and we try to make it related to the
This
company.
reminds me of like either call signs that they'd have in the military or nicknames that you give to other ball players, right?
Yeah. So the code name for Central Maloney was Lightning Strike because they make transformers.
Well,
So,
and go ahead.
Then there was Project Tiger,
Yeah.
which was a success story. That's Southern Sky Aviation.
Yeah.
So they were big Auburn fans. So that's why it was Project Tiger.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
the Project Maple goes to it's a nod to Canada, right?
Right. Yeah.
And which I think is cool. If we're talking about what that $32.5 million capital investment with Premier Aviation is going to bring, we're talking about 250 high wage jobs in the next 4 years. Then it says here that there'll be 10 employees in 2024 and probably 80 in each of the subsequent years through 2026.
Right.
Does that sound right to you?
Right.
Um,
This will also be their U.S. headquarter operation.
okay.
So, I mean, to get a headquarter operation is substantial. And this is an international company. So it shows that we can compete on an international and a domestic level and win.
I think it's awesome. So part of what I want our listeners to do is to be literally when they go home for the holidays, all right? So this will probably air next week, but in the next month or two, they're going to go home and they're going to say, "Hey, how are things in Panama City? Y'all recovering?" So let me tell you about Project Maple. We got a maintenance, repair, and overhaul company that's coming in. Haney is exploding. They're going to be training up some of the workers for this. In fact, I don't want to take away from a future podcast, but the fact is, they have 40 or 50 students that get through their program, and they don't necessarily get to stay local. They have to go somewhere else. I think, they may or may not have a job locally. These kinds of jobs, this one and others, maybe future projects, would allow those students that are trained to have a place locally, right?
Stay home. They can stay home.
The pay on those jobs, because people ask me this stuff, like the estimation is that you're looking at 115% of the typical Bay County average job as far as the payment. So this is going to be a step up, right?
Yeah. The average range for these jobs, and this is top to bottom, top management to the frontline technician, is about 60,000.
Okay. I reached out to Jennifer Conley, because she's got me talking about like regional impact and some of this stuff, right? And I was fascinated when I was talking to Alex King with the port, because all the extra cargo capacity that comes in locally, it's good locally, but it actually has impact beyond here as well. And I was thinking about like most of the major employers that we have, they draw people from all around, like at the beach with the hospitality industry. Many of the folks that service those rooms and do the work there come from small towns all around.
Sure.
So those jobs in Bay County affect other places. I would assume as more and more of these kinds of jobs come to Bay County, that those that are being trained in aviation, or maybe even coming into some of the airport jobs as it expands, it also would help us maybe not just in Bay County, but even beyond.
Sure. I mean, we have some people that drive an hour to work every day.
Yep.
We have people that literally drive from Dothan, Alabama.
All of that makes a huge
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
It's more than just Bay; it's a region.
Hmm.
You have to. So from the airport, I look regionally, because if you just look at Bay, I only have a small part before I hit Walton County. So, when we talk at the airport, I always use region.
Are you allowed to talk a little bit about like the effort is local? Okay, so there is I mean, you're over the Bay County
Hmm.
Economic Development Alliance, and so yes, it's about Bay County jobs, but also the airport it's an international airport now.
No, it's an international by name. We don't have any international traffic,
Okay,
but we are a regional asset. When you look at what's called our catchment area, it's the 7 counties around the airport, all the way over to Okaloosa, and then down into Gulf and Franklin counties. And then as I walk around the airport every day, last week must have been Dothan week. So probably if I bumped into 15 people that said, "Hey, I'm from Dothan,"
right.
and by the way, we love it here. So our catchment area goes all the way up into Dothan.
Catchment, is that
Catchment, that's the airport word for where do we get our passengers from.
I love it. So it's expanding.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
As we get bigger jets, so you know, some of the regional airports like Dothan have regional jets. We have a lot of mainline jets. So all that makes a difference of how you get people. It affects fares. It affects a lot of different things. So we're growing passenger wise. Now we're growing with Premier.
Uh-huh.
So that's all great news,
So
or I should say, good news for
Good
Bay.
news for
it's
Bay.
good news, Bay. That's right. We're growing better together.
But I
brighter
want to
together.
expand on that,
Please.
because both the Airport Authority and the Bay EDA are members of Jennifer's organization. So we all promote.
Florida's Great Northwest.
Yeah,
Yes.
Florida's Great Northwest. We all promote regionalism. Matter of fact, we work together, we travel together. My peers in other communities, and Jennifer is really good at bringing prospects in from a regional perspective. Matter of fact, Central Maloney was her lead, and we just happened to be able to push it over the finish line.
Well, and sometimes I struggle because I don't focus. I mean, I'm an ADD guy, right? But what I see so often is like, it doesn't have to be we win, you lose. What you guys are doing is everybody's working together.
Yeah.
And you find whichever the municipality is locally, like often what's good for Bay County is also good for Mariana. It's also good can be good for Pensacola, depending.
Yeah.
Right. And so I love the concept that a rising tide floats all boats, right? And so you guys are doing an excellent job leaving from the state of Florida and the northwest part of it and Bay County, and actually letting Bay County sell itself. But we need help cheering that on, right?
Yeah.
So we have a win in Premier Aviation. They got a family core value. We're going to love that. There's some jobs coming on the scene. Some of y'all got kids and grandkids that need jobs. Send them to Haney. They'll train them up in something. And there's more plans because you guys are in conversation constantly, both with those that are looking to come to this area and saying, hey, those that we would like to see come to this area need this kind of educational background, or they need this kind of opportunity in the fine arts, or I mean, you're able to help us navigate as you go year to year to these things, what they're looking for, so that we can tell them why they should be here, right?
Right.
So it's a 2-year process on some of these projects.
This one was about 2.
Yeah, probably on average. It really is driven by the company's decision making timeline. We've had some that we've worked for a year or 2 and they've gone silent and they've come back, and 5 years later you're still talking to them. And then we've had some that have gone as fast as like 6 months. So it just depends on the needs of the company from what I see.
Are there some others in the pipeline? I don't need details. I just want to know if it takes a minute or two that there's some more coming.
There's always opportunities, and we're always out trying to stir up those opportunities and keep them so they're fresh.
Well, I'd like to think we're stirring some of that up even today. You know, they tell me, some friends of mine told me that the word on the street is that there's value in investing in Bay County. Is that true? Have y'all heard that rumor? It's
Every
fact,
day.
isn't it?
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Listen, y'all have been incredible. I know that we're going to have some more good news to share before long. It's a treat to have both of you on. We are as a community and as a county, we're doing better together. I'm proud to be friends with both of you. Looking forward to seeing how all of this effort together continues to pay off and bring jobs and make Bay County a brighter place.
Thank you for your support. It's great to know that we got friends like you in our community, and what we do, we don't do in a bubble. We've got to have everyone's support, and our community is wonderful to rally behind our efforts and support economic development growth, support the airport.
I can only say to that, amen, sister.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us for the Good News Bay podcast, where we are making Bay County brighter one conversation at a time. Please help us share this good news and change the conversation by liking, sharing, and subscribing to the podcast.